What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh format video, and in this video we're going to be showing off another duel in jar format. And this will probably be my last video of this sort for jar format. I'm planning on maybe having like a live commentary duel in this format like I did at the end of last format, so look out for that. But, you know, in terms of just going back and doing replay analysis, this will probably be my last game in the format, as I do think that it's very similar to Treasure format, but it's dominated by this sort of triangle of strategies at the top of it, you know, Burn, Mill, and Good Stuff, all have interesting matchups with each other. But ultimately, I think Burn is just the best deck, which makes this format a little bit less interesting than something like Treasure. That being said, I do still think it's interesting, so I wanted to show off the last sort of leg of that triangle, the Good Stuff Aggro versus Burn matchup, and see how that turned out. But before we dive into that, if you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of February, and while that goal does seem a little bit out of reach right now, if you subscribe, we can get one step closer, and I'd appreciate it a lot. In addition, if you enjoy the video, as always, please do leave a like down below. It really helps out the channel. And lastly, if you want to play any of these obscure formats for yourself, then we do have a Discord server. Link will be in the description down below, but it's a great place to find games in all these obscure formats and duel with some pretty great people. But with all that out of the way, let's dive into this deck breakdown. Now, I've already shown off the sort of mill deck. I didn't show off the burn deck in its own devoted video. It does feature in my guide if you want to see an example deck list for burn. But this is basically my jar good stuff list, and it's very similar to my good stuff list for treasure format. The biggest change is really in the side deck, as the side deck is pretty tricked out to deal with mill. So I won't spend too much time on this deck list. It is pretty straightforward. It's just good stuff. So we're playing, you know, some aggressive pressure in the form of Mechanical Chasers and Mystic Tomatoes. We're playing a Masked Sorcerer as a Mystic Tomato target. That's pretty good. We're also playing a Cannon Soldier as another Mystic Tomato target that can also be used to end the game. We're playing these 4 recruiters here, Sangan and Witch Black Force, that they can fetch out pretty much anything that you'd want to see in your deck. We're playing some defensive options like Giant Soldier's Stone. We also have some powerful flip monsters like Man-Eater Bugs and Magicians of Faiths that can be very, very powerful if used correctly. We are also playing a ton of extremely powerful spell cards. We've got 1 Change of Heart, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Pot Brigade, 1 Raigeki, the classic Power 5 limited spells. We've got the 3 hand rips, Confiscation, Delinquent Duo, and Forceful Sentry, all incredibly powerful. We've got Snatch Steal, which is another limited spell that's incredibly strong in this format, just going aggressive at the end of the game and killing your opponent out of nowhere. We have 2 Fisher to act as even more monster removal, and lastly, we have our spell and trap removal, 1 Heavy Storm and 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. This is the spell and trap removal ratio that I personally prefer, as I think it's good to have heavy in the deck, you know, to just be a massive board clear if your opponent does commit a ton of spell and traps to board. But I think the Mystical Space Typhoons are a bit better on the whole, as they can be used to snipe things like Waboku or just desserts during the end phase of the turn that your opponent sets them, making them unable to be activated. So I really do like Mystical Space Typhoon in this format and in Treasure format as well. Moving on to the traps, we've got 1 Mirror Force, 3 Trap Hole, and 1 Waboku. As I mentioned with the Mystical Space Typhoons, they can be used to snipe Waboku preemptively, which makes Waboku a lot worse. And while they can also be used for this purpose with Trap Hole, if you're pulling off a Trap Hole, then you are likely helping out your game state a little bit more than you are with a Waboku. So I do like the 3 Trap Hole, 1 Waboku here. For the side deck, we've got some great tools against Mill. We've got 3 Minar and 3 Just Desserts, as well as 3 Tribute to the Doomed. All of these are incredibly good at punishing mill decks. The Minar is basically 3,000 points of damage. The Just Desserts can really punish boards that are basically just a bunch of set monsters that are powerful flips. So this can be used to potentially end the game out of nowhere if your opponent isn't expecting them. And we've also got a ton of spell and trap removal. We've got 3 Giant Tornado and a Heavy Storm here to serve that purpose, which is very good against the burn deck. We also have a Fisher and a Morphing Jar to bring in against other good stuff decks, but honestly the deck is already pretty well established against good stuff decks, and I'm not really sure how useful these cards will be. I just include them in the side in case you did want to use them. But now that I've gone over the deck breakdown, let's dive into some games to show off how the good stuff versus burn matchup generally looks. Okay, we've got a game against Aratos, who I think has been the only duels that have actually featured playing jar format, even though I've seen some jar format games with some other players. But they're a great player in the format, as well as all these old retro formats, so always a pleasure to have them on. They're playing burn, we're playing this sort of good stuff aggro list, so let's see how it goes for us. we are going to lose the Rock Paper Scissors, so they will be able to go first here, which can be pretty good if they get some, you know, sort of hand rips or if they get some chain energies early. But honestly, our hand is looking pretty good. They're going to set 2, pass back to us, and, you know, we could get aggressive here, attacking into their set. But if it's Man-Eater Bug, that gets a little bit punished, and if it's not Man-Eater Bug, then something out of Sangan and attacking into it gets a little bit punished. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to set the Sangan and set a trap hole and pass back to them. It's a bit of a passive play, but I do think that it's worth doing. If they commit another monster to board, then we can always Raigeki it next turn. They're going to bring out Mystic Tomato. We are going to trap hole that, and they're going to flip up a Witch of the Black Forest and attack into our set. So it is Sangan, so we will get a search here. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw Mystical Space Typhoon, which is pretty nice. We're just going to fire it on their back row in case it's something like a trap hole or something. Luckily, it was just a 7 tools with the Bandit. So we will be able to bring out a Mystic Tomato, attack into their Witch there. They'll take 3, and they'll look for a good card to get. They're going to grab a Sangan, and we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato of their own and start attacking in. And we do know that we have more Mystic Tomatoes in deck than they do, so we can end out on this sort of crashing on top, hopefully at least. So we're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato. They're going to bring out a Witch of the Black Forest, and that will enable them to get a pretty good search here. But they are a normal summon this turn, so they can't actually set there. But I still feel like we're fine making this trade. We're going to bring out a Witch of our own and attack in. If it's Mirror Force, we're okay losing this board because we get a search off the Witch. So we're fine with this. They're going to grab a Nimble Momonga, which is a very annoying card to deal with. We're going to pass back to them, and they're going to set 2, pass back to us. Now, we could potentially Raigeki this away, as, you know, if it is the Momonga, we are clearing it. We do have a Dark Hole in hand for later, potentially. We also do have a Confiscation, so we can know for sure if it's a Momonga, or whether it's like a Sangan or something. So we've got a couple different options here, but I think that it's fine to just attack, potentially. We are going to go for the Raigeki, though, just out of an abundance of caution to clear that Momonga. They do have Magic Jammer for it, so they will be able to prevent us from killing that Momonga, though. So we are going to Confiscation. Luckily, they don't have a Jammer for that. And we do get to see their hand, and it's a pretty good one. They've got Change of Heart, Giant Germ, and Sangan, all of which are very good. This does confirm that the set is Momonga, which is quite annoying, but nothing we can really do about that. We're actually going to send the Change of Heart with the Confiscation, as that can be a very annoying card, especially if we want to use up our Man-Eater Bug. So we're going to set the Bug and pass back to our opponent, and this is actually a very big misplay. Because we didn't attack this turn, we could have switched our monster to defense, but we didn't do that. We weren't thinking about it. And unfortunately, our opponent is going to be able to make use of that. But first, they're going to fire a Confiscation just to see what we've got in hand. They're going to take our Mechanical Chaser because we can't really use the Dark Hole right now. And they're going to flip up that Momonga, attack into our Witch, and get 2 Momongas to field. So unfortunately, you know, they will be able to get a ton of life point gain here, even if we pop one of them with the Man-Eater Bug. And we could have easily avoided this by just switching our monster to the defense position, but we didn't think of it. We're going to activate Pot of Greed, draw 2. Those are 2 pretty good ones. We're going to flip up this Mechanical Chaser, pop that Momonga, and attack in to their other monsters here. We could have potentially popped their set in case it was the Germ, but, you know, it could have been the Sangan as well, so we didn't want to take that risk. And honestly, we're okay with them getting 2 Germs here, and we'll just attack into one of them. We will take another 5, but our life points are scaling pretty evenly, so we're pretty fine with that. And we do have a Change of Heart and a Dark Hole in hand, which is very nice. They're going to attack into our Man-Eater Bug with their Giant Germ, so they will be able to clear it. They're going to set 1, which is their Sangan, and activate a Chain Energy, which is a little bit annoying here, but not the worst, honestly. We're going to think about exactly what to do. We have the read that they probably don't have a Mirror Force set, or else they would have used it earlier. So we're going to bring out a Cannon Soldier and just go for a lot of damage here. They will be able to get a Sangan search here, but honestly, that's okay, as they will have to pay 500 committing that to board, and we'll be able to attack in for a ton of damage here. We're going to use the Cannon Soldier to tribute off the Witch in main phase 2, as, you know, if they do have a board clear, this mitigates that a little bit. We're going to search out a Man-Eater Bug, pass back to them, and they're just going to set 1, pass back to us. It's very likely to be the Spear Cretin, but let's find out with that Change of Heart. This should just be game either way, though, unless it's like a man-eater bug. As if it's man-eater bug, then we can't flip it up and attack with it, so we'll just have it tribute off for the cannon soldier. But if it is Spear Cretin, then this should just win us the game. We'll flip up the Spear Cretin to attack in for what is going to be 3,300, and then they'll only have 700, so we can tribute off the board to kill them here. So that should be the end of the game, unless they've got a Mirror Force or a Woboku here, but luckily that is just the end of the game. So game one, we were able to win pretty handily. You know, they didn't really draw into their burn cards as much, so we were able to get the upper hand by going pretty aggressive, and it paid off for us pretty well. So going into game two, we side in a lot more spell and trap removal, as we do know that they're on burn now. So let's see if that helps us out at all. So they will be able to go first here, and we draw a pretty good hand. They're going to just set 2 pass back to us, and we could potentially fire that heavy as we do with the Trunade, but we don't really feel the need to waste it on 1-for-1 removal, so we'll just set our Witch, set the heavy pass back to them, hope that they commit more spells and traps to board so we can heavy storm it later. They're going to set another pass back to us. We're going to set another pass back to them. This does play a little bit poorly into a board clear, as Soldier Stone is a pretty nice defensive option that won't replace itself. But we do want to get more monsters on board, as if they do make a big aggressive pressure without a board clear, then they could potentially easily clear this Witch and get in for a fair amount of damage. So they're going to fire a Heavy Storm, clearing our Heavy Storm. Quite unfortunate. And they do have a Raigeki on top of that. So we'll be able to search out a Sangan with this Witch here. They're going to Confiscation, so they'll be able to snipe a card out of our hand. So they will take the Mystic Tomato there, which is a pretty good pick. And they're going to flip up this Nomanga, attack in for 1,000. Set 1, pass back to us. We draw a Witch, which is pretty nice. They don't know about that, so we can set it and set this Trunade, pass back to them. They're going to flip up this Spear Cretin, and they're going to try and get aggressive here, attacking into our set. I guess assuming that we set the Magician of Faith, but luckily for us, it is just this Witch of the Black Forest here. They're going to switch their Momonga to defense, set 1, pass back to us, and we draw a Mystical Space Typhoon, which is pretty good. We've got a bit of a thinker here, as if we clear that Spear Cretin, based on the way that the card works at this time, even though they have no monsters in their graveyard, since we do have monsters in our graveyard, we will be able to revive one. So it will work out in our favor there. So we want this attack to go through on the Spear Cretin, so we actually are going to fire this giant Trunade. Maybe a little bit greedy, but I think it's worth doing. We're going to summon out a Sangan as well, attack into their Spear Cretin, bring out this Mystic Tomato, and maybe this is also a little bit greedy, as, you know, we could have just brought out another Recruiter instead. But we went with the Mystic Tomato, as it's a battle recruiter at least, and they wanted to get rid of it with the Confiscation, so we figured that they might have like a Cannon Soldier or something in hand that they don't want us to crash. But we're just going to attack into their Momonga that they brought out, set this Mystical Space Typhoon, and pass back to them. And just in case they have like a Mirror Force or something, we're actually going to switch the Tomato to defense. We're going to attack in to that Momonga, attack directly with the Witch of the Black Forest. And we're feeling pretty good here. If they've got like Dark Hole, then that's pretty bad for us. But they've used up Raigeki already, so we don't have to worry about that. They're going to activate Justice Urge here, and we'll take 15 from that, which is quite unfortunate. And it looks like they do indeed have the Dark Hole here. We'll be able to get 2 searches, though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. We'll grab a Sangan and another Tomato, as, again, they did want us to get rid of the Tomato, so we figure that there's probably a reason for that. They're going to activate Monster Reborn, bring back our own Giant Soldier of Stone to act as a defender. And we can't really get over that. So we're going to just set the Sangan, maybe search out like a Man-Eater Bug if it does get destroyed, pass back to them. They've got a Mechanical Chaser there, so they are going to clear our Sangan. We're going to grab a Man-Eater Bug, and we'll just they'll pass back to us. Magician of Faith is pretty good, but you know, we don't really have too many powerful spells in Grave right now, except for Spell and Trap removal, which we've already got on field. So we're going to set the Man-Eater Bug. They're going to attack into it with the Mechanical Chaser, and we're going to think about what we actually want to destroy here, as the Mechanical Chaser is an annoying aggressive threat, but we are just going to pop the Giant Soldier, as we don't really have a way to deal with that. They're going to activate Chain Energy, try and pass back to us, but we're just going to let that go through. I guess we're not going to fire this Mystical Space Typhoon in the end phase. I think that it probably would have been worth it to fire the Mystical Space Typhoon in the end phase, clearing their back row, but I guess we want to have the option to use it on the Chain Energy here. So we're going to think about what to do. We are just going to Mystical Space Typhoon their back row here, which I think is kind of, you know, not the best play. I guess we wanted to wait to see if we did want to use it on the chain energy, but still, I think we should have just fired it on the back row in the end phase. But luckily, it looks like it won't matter here. We're going to pay 5, activate Dark Hole, summon out this Mechanical Chaser, pay another 5 to reborn the Mystic Tomato, as we do know that they're out of board clears, and we're going to get in for a fair amount of damage. Pass back to them. They've still got chain energy up, so they will have to pay every time to activate something. They're going to activate Pot of Greed here, which is fine by us, as that basically represents 1,000 damage. They're going to pay another 5, set 1, pass back to us. We have Mystical Space Typhoon if we do want to use it, but we might not because they are pretty low on life points. We're going to bring out this Cannon Soldier here, attack into their set. It is Spear Cretin, and they do have some decent options in Grave, but honestly, I think this benefits us a lot more than it does them. They're going to think about what to get here, and they are just going to get a Spear Cretin again, and we're fine with that. We'll bring back a Witch here, attack into their Spear Cretin, and they'll be able to get out another Spear Cretin. That's fine by us. We can get out this Man-Eater Bug to deal with the Spear Cretin next turn. And in the meantime, we've got monsters to tribute off for Cannon Soldiers. So we're going to tribute off our Witch there, add a Mechanical Chaser to hand, and then we're going to pay 500, set this Mystical Space Typhoon to snipe a back row in the end phase, I think. They're going to activate Trunade, and we're going to think about what to do here, and we actually are going to fire off the Mystical Space Typhoon, figuring that, this could get really annoying if they are able to activate the chain energy again, and we might as well make use of that Mystical Space Typhoon now. They're going to summon out a Mechanical Chaser, attack into our Cannon Soldier, which is a little bit annoying. They're going to set 1, pass back to us, and we could potentially win the game here if that isn't like a Mirror Force or something. If it is Mirror Force, then that's very unfortunate, but we can play around that as well. We're going to flip up this Man-Eater Bug, pop their Mechanical Chaser, and attack into what we know is their Spear Cretin. Now, doing this will enable us to get back the Cannon Soldier here, which will just be the end of the game, as we haven't committed a normal summon to board yet, so we could just set a monster from our hand, tribute off our entire board with the Cannon Soldier, and that will be all she wrote. So this matchup went pretty well for the Good Stuff aggro deck, but as I showed off in the first video with Mill versus aggro, one game does not necessarily show the whole picture. So I've actually got another duel to show off as well, so let's dive into that. Okay, we've got a rematch against Aratos. It's again the Good Stuff aggro deck versus the Burn deck. So we were able to win pretty easily in the first match, so let's see how we do in the second match. Okay, this is a decent hand. We're going to start by just setting a bug, setting a Mystical Space Typhoon, passing back to them, and hopefully this will be good enough. They're going to bring out a Witch of the Black Forest, attack into our bug, which is unfortunate, of course, but honestly, the reason why we did this is so that we could potentially get in a Mass Sorcerer attack next turn. So we might go for that play and get a draw, which will be pretty nice. They're going to activate not Mass Sorcerer, they're going to activate Forceful Sentry. They're going to send back our Reborn, which is quite unfortunate. They do know about the Mass Sorcerer now, and it looks like they're going to Comfy, getting rid of Stone. That's interesting. It seems like they don't really care about our Mass Sorcerer. So we are going to actually Mystical Space Typhoon their set in the end phase, figuring that's something to stop a Mass Sorcerer attack. It's not, just the Just Desserts. And I think we are... Oh, I guess we're saving the Mass Sorcerer, I guess, in case we get, like, a card to protect it later on, like a Trap Hole. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I think I might have just summoned out the Mass Sorcerer to get the draw in. But I guess this is fine as well. But let's see what they do here. They're going to think for a little bit, and they are going to summon out a Mystic Tomato and reborn a Witch of the Black Forest, which is a bit unfortunate here. We're going to get Crashing, and we're going to think about exactly what to get. We're going to grab a Mystic Tomato here. They're going to also grab a Mystic Tomato, crash them. We're going to grab another Mystic Tomato. They'll crash that. And here we have a bit of a decision to make, because we can bring out a Cannon Soldier, which then they'll be able to bring out a Cannon Soldier of their own and crash, or we could bring out a Witch, which will get us a Search. And, no matter what we bring out, we have to do it first, as we're not turn player, and that's the way that this sort of ordering works. So we bring out a Witch, and I think this is a major misplay here, as they're able to get out a very powerful sort of combo here, which is Giant Germ. So what they can do here is crash the Giant Germ into the Witch of the Black Forest, get out 2 more Giant Germs, deal 500 to us, and then crash their Witch into our Witch, So we will get a search here, but we'll also take 2,000 more damage, which is a little bit more than we want to be taking here. So we're going to take that. They'll grab a cannon soldier on top of that, which makes things even worse, and they're going to pass back to us. So I think if we had brought out the cannon soldier instead, they would have crashed their cannon soldier into our cannon soldier, which would have been a little bit unfortunate. But I think overall it would have been better for us, as we wouldn't have dropped down to 5,000, which is a little bit worrying against this sort of burn deck. We could draw a giant soldier, but we're not actually going to set that. We're actually going to set the Magician of Faith here, as they know we have Mass Sorcerer in hand. So we figure that they're not going to attack into it, knowing that we could potentially get a draw off it. I mean, they could just bring out the cannon soldier and attack into it that way. But we're just, hoping that this will work, as if we are able to pull off the Magician of Faith, we'll be able to get back the Mystical Space Typhoon and pop their Chain Energy. If they do have some board clear or Change of Heart, then we'd lose either way. So ultimately, I'm fine with this. They're just going to set one, switch the Giant Germs to defense, which is just as we planned. And we're going to flip up, or I guess we're going to think about this for a bit. And then we're going to actually set the Giant Soldier Stone. Oh, that's kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess we might have the read that they've got a Maneater bug. And also, if we flip up the Magician of Faith just to get back the Mystical Space Typhoon, it will be very exposed to like a Cannon Soldier attack, but I feel like this is a little bit too passive. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Heavy Storm, which is pretty decent. We're going to pay 5, get rid of that Chain Energy with the Heavy Storm. We'll set this with the Black Forest, set the Confiscation, pass back to them. We could have fired the Confiscation there, but we figured that they probably don't have too many good cards in hand. We do know about the Cannon Soldier, so maybe it would have been worth to get rid of that. But, if we figured that if they had a very powerful card in hand, like Raigeki or something, they would have fired it already. So we're going to save this for a later date. They do have another Chain Energy, though, so that is a little bit unfortunate. And we're just going to pass back to them. And I really think that this is a little bit of a mistake, because if they are able to bring out a Cannon Soldier, then that's a lot of damage. That's 2,500 damage that they can deal to us, and if they've got like a Justice on top of it, then we just lose the game here. So we're just going to pass back to them, and again, I think this is a majorly passive play, and we do get majorly punished for it. They're going to bring out a Cannon Soldier here, and tribute off basically their entire board. They're going to grab a Witch here, and they're going to switch the no, they're just going to use the effect more. So they're going to tribute off their whole board there and activate a Justice Urge for the end of the game. So, game 1 there, I think we played way too passively, but honestly, there wasn't really much we could do there. That Chain Energy really put in a lot of work, and also misplaying with the Witch of the Black Forest instead of the Cannon Soldier really punished us, dropping us down very low very early. So I think we misplayed that game, but honestly, Burn did very well there, and Aratos played it very well. So I feel like we might have lost that game either way. But going into game 2, hopefully we'll learn from our mistakes, and we'll have more spell and trap removal, so I think that'll be fine. And this is a pretty killer hand here, so we're just going to set the Witch, set a trap hole, pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Tomato, we're just going to trap hole that. They're going to Duo, which is a little bit annoying. Let's hope they don't hit the Raigeki here. And they hit Snatch Steal, which is honestly not that bad of a hit for us here. Snatch Steal is a bit worse against their deck, as they set so much, but we're just going to send this Maneater bug, and they've got another hand rip here, which is quite unfortunate. So they will be able to take the Raigeki out of our hand, shuffle it back into the deck. They're going to set one, activate 2 Chain Energies. That's a bit worrying, but we do luckily have this Witch of the Black Forest, so we'll be able to attack in for 1,100 here. Main 2, we are just going to pay the 1,000 to set the Magician of Faith. We do have a Snatch Steal, and they do know about the Magician of Faith, so they can potentially play around this. But honestly, no matter what they'll do, they'll have to pay 1,000, so we feel pretty good about this. They're going to pay 1,000 to set one, pass back to us. We draw Heavy Storm, which is pretty good. We might just want to go for that, or we could just attack in here. And unfortunately for us, it is a Momonga, so they will be able to get out 2 more, which is a bit worrying. We're actually just going to pass back to them, as they'll have to pay 1,000 to do anything here. Now, this is a little bit greedy. If they do have a Raigeki, they can Raigeki our board away and get in for 2,000, and then we'll still have to pay for the 1,000 to activate the Heavy Storm. So a bit worrying, and unfortunately they do have the Raigeki, so they will be able to clear our entire board here. We will get a search though, so we'll grab a Mechanical Chaser, but ultimately this is pretty bad. They'll be able to get in 2,000, dropping us down to 5,000. We'll have to pay another 1,000 to activate Heavy Storm. It's not looking too good. We will activate that 1,000 to pay to get rid of the chain energies there. And we are going to attack in with Mechanical Chaser here. So that will net them 150 life points, but honestly, we just need to get clearing their monsters here. They're going to activate Pot of Greed, and so they'll be able to draw 2 here. They're going to switch the Momonga to defense, set 2, pass back to us. We draw Dark Hole, which is pretty nice. We're just going to attack in to the Momonga in case they have like a Mirror Force set. Main 2, we're going to set this Tomato. They could have like a Dark Hole, but they've used up the Raigeki already, so we're hoping that they don't. They're going to bring out a Mechanical Chaser here, and they're going to attack into our Mechanical Chaser. We could activate Wuboku here, but I think given that we're at low life points and Burn can easily get aggressive, we want to save the Wuboku for a better shot. We're going to think about what to do here, and we actually are going to activate Giant Trunade. They're going to chain Wuboku, but that's perfectly fine. The reason that we wanted to activate Giant Trunade is so that we could bring out this Mystic Tomato without having to worry about a trap hole. So we'll flip it up, pass back to them. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Mass Sorcerer, so we can potentially get in a draw here. We're going to summon out the Mass Sorcerer, attack into their set. Unfortunately for us, it is a Magician of Faith, so they will be able to get back that Raigeki, but we will be able to draw with Mass Sorcerer. So we'll draw a Mystical Space Typhoon, which isn't the best here, but it is something at least, I guess. They're going to activate Raigeki, clear our board away, unfortunately. Bring out a Sangan and attack in for 1,000. We'll take that. Main 2, they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a Man-Eater Bug, which is pretty nice. Not the best, obviously, as they will be able to get a search with the Sangan, but we do have Dark Hole for later, in case they search something like a Magician of Faith. We're going to pop that Sangan, they're going to search a Witch, and they're just going to go to main 2, set 1, pass back to us. We draw Giant Soldier Stone, which is pretty nice if they don't have a way to clear it, so we're just going to set that, pass back to them. And unfortunately, they're going to bring out this Witch, flip up a Man-Eater Bug here, pop our Giant Soldier, and attack in for 1550. Now, since that is over half of our life points, and they do have the capability to get really aggressive with their burning, we are actually going to activate Wuboku here. Maybe I should have saved this for a later point when there's more damage on the table, but I think it's good to try and just prevent them from being able to kill us with this deck. So, unfortunately, we just draw a Raigeki, which is more removal, but it's not really that useful. We do activate Dark Hole, as if they've got a Cannon Soldier. This prevents them from just killing us outright, but they will be able to search out a Mechanical Chaser, which is 1850 damage, which is quite unfortunate. That is more than the amount that we Wuboku'd there, so kind of unfortunate, but hopefully they'll only be able to deal the 1850 here. So they'll bring out the Mechanical Chaser and activate a Reborn. So that will just be the end of the game, as all we've got is a Mystical Space Typhoon. So that's the end of the game, and I hope that these two matches showed that, either of these decks can have a good matchup against the other. It really depends on what they draw early on. If the Burn deck draws into like their chain energies and stuff early on, then the Good Stuff aggro deck can have a pretty tough time, but if they don't, then the Good Stuff aggro deck can get aggressive early and kill the Burn deck pretty easily. So I'd say that this matchup is really a toss-up between the two, which sort of makes the triangle of this format shape out to be Burn has an instant win against Mill, Mill has an instant win against Good Stuff aggro, and Burn and aggro have like a 50-50 matchup. Which makes it so that Burn is basically the best deck in the format to play, as it does have the 50-50 matchup against aggro, but aggro also has an instant loss match in this format. So I think this will do it for my main coverage of this format. As I said, I will probably have a sort of live duel in this format in the future, so look forward to that. But other than that, I think this format is basically like a treasure format, just with a triangle at top that dominates and makes it a bit less fun than treasure format for me at least. But what are your all opinions on this format? Do you think that I'm making it out to be worse than it actually is? Or do you think that I'm absolutely right and that treasure format is much better? Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.